parties. Taking a pot shot at the Congress, the Prime Minister said that the Grand Old Party alone is responsible for corruption that amounts to a few lakh crore rupees. He even spoke about the need for uniform civil code in the country and slammed those who are opposing UCC or other such reforms for appeasing Muslim vote bank. The opposition levelled polarization charge on the Prime Minister and claimed that such comments are being made in Madhya Pradesh as the state polls are around the corner. While reminding the Saffron Party about Karnataka, the Congress Party went on to claim that all the corrupt instead are actually with the BJP, and now the Prime Minister fears that they will lose the 2024 battle. As we approach those 2024 general elections, the BJP is continuing to distinguish itself from the others on the issue of corruption. And this works even better as some parties try to form a club despite being opponents themselves in the past. So will corruption be the plank in 2024 again for Prime Minister Modi? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. But let me first bring to you what the Prime Minister said on the issue of UCC, Uniform Civil Code. This is possibly the first time the Prime Minister has spoken so strongly in favor of UCC publicly. He said people are being instigated in the name of UCC. Added that laws cannot be different for different family members. So he basically said that India is one family and there should be a simple, similar law for all. He reminded the public that the Constitution talks about the UCC as well. It's one of the directive principles. And even the Supreme Court on many occasions has pushed for the governments to bring in UCC. And this has been going on for almost 30 years. He added that opposition parties are playing, quote, vote bank politics on this issue when they instill fear, particularly in one set of Indian minorities over the UCC. But as I said, the Prime Minister didn't spare opposition parties today, especially those coming together for an alliance against the BJP. First up, he joked that don't be angry, but pity opposition parties coming together. Even in 2014 and 2019, he said, we did not see opposition parties this desperate. Those who used to abuse others are today bowing before them, he added. Their desperation shows public has decided to bring the BJP back. The Prime Minister asserted that this move and desperation of the opposition shows that, quote, BJP's massive win is certain in 2024. This is another big statement by the Prime Minister. But what was most interesting was his attack on corruption, which he linked with the opposition parties coming together, and he was quite scathing in this regard, rattling off all major scams under various parties and their governments, particularly the Congress and the UPA. So mocking the concept of Congress's guarantees, like in Karnataka, he said all opposition parties are instead a guarantee of corruption. These parties are a guarantee of several scams, he added. Parties that met in Patna, he said, are a guarantee of 20 lakh crore rupee scams. He said this while accusing these parties of corruption amounting to this sum in their political tenure. But most interestingly, he said, my guarantee is that I will not spare those involved in corruption. Now, this is eerily similar to his original anti-corruption plank for 2014 that was massively successful, coming on the back of the 10 years of the UPA. So, is it going to be the same plank for 2024? That's the big debate coming up.
तो ये सारे मिलकर के कम से कम 20 लाख करोड़ के घोटाले की गारंटी है।
Prime Minister has only one process he is doing to make washing machine. Understood? All the corrupt people are with him only, Prime Minister only.
पहले अपना दुश्मन बताते थे, गालियां देते थे, अब उन लोगों को आगे जाकर वो साष्टांग प्रणाम कर रहे हैं, नतमस्तक हो रहे हैं। देश की जनता ने भाजपा को वापस लाने का मन बना लिया है।
नरेंद्र मोदी जी का पैनिक रिएक्शन हो रहा है, ये पैनिक रिएक्शन।
एक घर में परिवार के एक सदस्य के लिए एक कानून हो, परिवार के दूसरे सदस्य के लिए दूसरा कानून हो, तो क्या वो घर चल पाएगा क्या?
तो क्या यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड के नाम पे आप प्लुरलिज्म, डाइवर्सिटी को छीन लेंगे क्या आप?
Shazia Ilmi of the BJP, Mohammad Asif Rahman of the TMC joining us. I'm also joined by Mohammad Nalapad of the Congress and Professor Sanjay Kumar, psephologist who tracks obviously all the elections very closely in India. And I thank you all for your time. Mohammad Nalapad, let me begin with you. The Prime Minister is very clear and the BJP is very clear. What distinguishes you and a lot of the other opposition parties from the BJP is corruption. And he's continuing to hammer that point. Would you concede that this is still, despite the Congress being out of power at the center for 10 years, this is still your Achilles heel?
See, hi, thank you so much for having me on the show. I would like to ask the Prime Minister, for past 9 years, where has this all corruption cases gone? How many people have they arrested in these corruption cases? How many people have they taken from Congress and put into the BJP washing machine, converted them clean and put them in BJP? How many people do you want as countless number of people that he called corrupt? Let me start with the Assam Chief Minister, who was also labeled, called as a corrupt person. From our party, he went to BJP, he became the Chief Minister. All the cases on him was cleared. Everything that he had said, everything that he had done had been vanished. The BJP is trying to use divisive politics. They are trying to polarize the situation. Today he is talking about
Uniform civil code, yes.
He has failed.
I'll come to that.
By doing the
Mohammad,
same.
I'll come to that. Mohammad, let's not mix issues. Let's not mix issues. I'll come to UCC separately. But I want to understand from you, it's the Congress's refrain, particularly in the second term of the Modi government, that they are they're clamping down on dissent and on opposition leaders in the country by filing cases on them and by even jailing some of them. But here you're saying exactly the opposite. So what is your stand? Has the government acted on corruption or not acted on corruption?
Not acted at all. For the
not
last
acted at all.
Last 9 years, they had forgotten about the corruption charges. Right now, when it comes to 9 years, he didn't do any work, and now again he needs to go into election.
Then why
now he needs the reason, he needs the baggage, he needs a clear image that he's trying to create. Like he said, I will bring Kaladan, 15 lakh rupees to everyone's account. Till today, not anyone has got 15 lakh rupees in anyone's account.
Well, the Prime Minister actually did not say that, but I don't know why the BJP never fact checks that. I'll leave that aside on the 15 lakh rupees in every person's account. But Shazia, this is a criticism of your government. And even your supporters point out that in the last 10 years, what is that one major corruption case that has seen a conclusion? A lot of cases are still pending. In 2014, I remember the cases of Robert Vadra, for example, used to be talked about a lot. I mean, nothing has happened on his case. Even the cases against Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi, your chief opponents, where is it going?
So point number one, it is not the job of the government or any party to interfere with the processes of law. The very fact that there has been no swift or vendetta politics against anybody is because we believe in the rule of law and courts do their work. When push comes to shove, then there is actually cases when they found wanting. You see what's happened in the National Herald case. But none of it prompted by the party or government, because this is not the job of the government. Two, there is an inherent contradiction in what my friend just said. So far, the charge against BJP has been that it's gone hammer and tongs against the opposition on fake charges of corruption. And now our gentleman here says BJP is not doing enough.
No, he's also pointing out that cases against those who join your party from other parties, they don't get followed up.
Third, and the main point, for the first time in the history of independent India, do we have a government at center, Prime Minister at the helm of it, which has seen not one single scam, not one single corruption charge.
Well, certainly not a charge that has stuck. Rafale was the big...
Squeaky clean.
No, okay, the Rafale was the big charge that the opposition made. It went up till the Supreme Court and actually did not stick.
To have led to have led a completely spotless, clean, brilliant government, 9 years, and every ministry, every department, whether it comes to transparency or propriety, not one case can be made against any
Okay,
minister
fair
compared
enough.
to all prime ministers of yesteryears.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
see
Let
what
me
you
go across
find.
to Mohammad Tausif of the TMC as well, because the Prime Minister talked about not just the Congress, but virtually all opposition parties that were meeting together in Patna. Mohammad, you know, even in the last few terms of Mamata Banerjee government, there have been corruption charges that are tumbling out of the closet, even, you know, touching several ministers, high-profile people who are considered to be close to Mamata Banerjee. And she has had to relent. She has had to, you know, sack those ministers and accept that there was corruption, at least by those ministers. So I ask you the same question I asked the Congress representative. Isn't corruption your Achilles heel? And Shazia has a point. Regardless of charges thrown at the Modi government, at the center, there's been no scam. And it's a complete contrast to the UPA time.
Ma'am, when you talk about scam, the irony of life is very sad. हमारे लोगों को वही दिखाया जा रहा है जो वो देखना चाहते हैं और अभी तक उनको सच्चाई दिखाई नहीं गई है. बट यू नो 2024
नहीं, बताइए क्या सच्चाई है. एक सेकंड. नहीं मोहम्मद जी, बताइए क्या सच्चाई है स्कैम को लेके जो नहीं दिखाई जा रही.
Ma'am, it will come very soon. It will come very soon because you know the misusing of central agencies are there, but it will come very soon. But again, I'll tell you. Just
are you saying this in context of charges against TMC, or are you saying that there are scams of the BJP that are not coming out?
The scams of the BJP, of course, from money laundering, from demonetization, everything will come very soon. But let me complete my statement.
You mean
2024.
You mean demonetization? That's also gone to court. What's the corruption there? Okay, let him finish. Let him finish.
You don't know.
I won't speak. If you don't want to let me speak, I won't
immersed
speak.
in corruption that you don't know.
Okay, let him finish. Shazia, then you respond. Let him finish, then you respond. Yeah.
Shazia ji, just listen to me. 2024 will be a different election altogether. People will not just see the opening ceremony and foreign trips and vacation, but the people of India will ask the work chart what Modi has done in last 9 years. Well, I was hearing Smriti ji and Sushil Modi ji as well. They both were confident, which was totally fake.
Mohammad Tausif ji, please come back to the question I asked you. Let's discuss corruption. Yes, go ahead.
No. When you talk about the unity, what will happen about the unity? They were charging Mamata Banerjee how once the opposition treated her. Like Modi also said right now, जो पहले लड़ते थे वो आज साथ में हैं. तो आपने एलके अडवाणी को अलग क्यों कर दिया?
नहीं, I'm not asking you about that. Mohammad Tausif,
I mean, what is this?
Mohammad Tausif, I did not ask you about the unity of the opposition.
Why are you panicking?
One second, one by one. Please don't speak over each other. And Mohammad, just Mohammad and I, please.
The biggest political party
Mohammad, if you do it, if you function like this, then it becomes
election.
problematic. I want to give you the time, but please answer my question. I will go topic by topic. I'll come to the unity issue. I'm not discussing that right now. Speak about the corruption issue. Don't you think if this becomes the 2024 plank, that is trouble for TMC, for RJD, for Congress?
No. I am telling you, since 2016, the ED is knocking Bengal's door and they have raided more than 49 places and arrested few of them, but without any charge sheet. Why aren't they coming with a charge sheet and arresting all the TMC leaders and sending them to jail? Are they keeping them to blackmail for 2024? This is not going to happen, ma'am. And it is not only about corruption charges. It is about misusing of central agencies. Money versus dollar, rupee versus dollar, unemployment, economic blunders, betrayal of farmers.
Okay, fair enough. You're saying there are other issues than just corruption and issues that once again, and issues that the central government will have to answer for. Very quickly, I want to go to Sanjay ji as well. Sanjay ji, in the many surveys that you do, how high does corruption rank still as far as citizens are concerned when they vote?
No, see, there are two issues about that. First, if you ask people's opinion about corruption, they seems very disturbed when they get to know that there are charges of corruption against any government, any minister. So they feel very disturbed. They express very strong opinion. But when it comes to voting, on the issue of corruption, large number of people don't consider that as an important issue while voting. So they vote on different other consideration, be it say unemployment, price rise, maybe Ram Mandir, maybe nationalism. But corruption is very low on voters' priority as an issue which shapes their voting decision. If I look at 2019 election and several state assembly election which was held after 2019. And if I recollect and enlist the various issues, so corruption is sometimes at number 7, sometimes at number 10, sometimes at number 6. It is not in the first 5 issues which are the prime considerations of
Can
voting
I ask
for
you
the
a
Indian
follow-up
voters.
very quickly before I move to UCC? Prime Minister's big image and pitch in 2014 was "Na khaunga, na khane dunga." Now, of course, critics may differ, but the BJP can by and large say, in a country that has the record like India does of the central governments, his government has been clean and he has not allowed any corruption at the highest echelons of the government under his nose. Do you think that is one of his strong suits when people vote for him?
No, absolutely. Prime Minister Modi is a vote puller for BJP, and one of the traits which people like about Prime Minister Modi, along with other traits, is that he is honest. He has been able to run a government which is honest. I'm saying this is the popular perception. I'm not saying whether the government is honest or not, but that's a very popular perception that Prime Minister Modi himself is an honest person. He has not allowed any corruption to creep in the central government.
Okay. Yes, Mohammed Nalapad wants to come in very quickly, please.
Ma'am, what happened in Karnataka? Why did the BJP lose the state in Karnataka? Because of 40% commission, because of Pay CM campaign. The people of Karnataka voted out BJP and Narendra Modi just because of corruption. If Narendra Modi ji and the Modi government was so clean and they didn't have anything to hide, then why didn't they punish the people in the state government?
Fair enough.
Why didn't they remove the
Fair enough, but I think we do know, Mr. Nalapad, I think we do know when we talk about state elections and central elections, we are looking at 2 different cups of tea altogether. There have been, for example, before 2019, when the Prime Minister was up for re-election, there were other BJP-ruled states that did see charges of corruption. That did not impact the BJP's performance at the centre. Let's just stick to the centre. I'm not really getting into each state's issue because they are diverse.
Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
Corruption is going to be a major issue.
Okay.
Just because his corruption is not come out in the public, the way that it came out in the UPA too, it doesn't mean that people do not know the depth of corruption.
But
Mohammed,
if it doesn't come out, then how will people know? I don't understand what you're talking about.
The relationship between Adani ji and Modi,
can I come in?
the question
second,
asked
Shazia.
by Rahul Gandhi in the parliament, and Rahul Gandhi being removed from parliament, these things are going to be stuck in the people's mind, and people are going to vote these people
Okay,
out
fair
in
enough.
2024.
Fair enough. But I don't think the issues which Rahul Gandhi was raising was about corruption. I think he was raising issues about promotion of one
That is
versus the
exactly
other.
corruption.
No, they
Do
didn't
you
talk about.
think-
I
do
discussed
you
that
think
issue. One
Prime
second,
Minister getting
Mamaji,
somebody-
don't
Prime
get
Minister
excited.
Getting somebody a contract is not corruption.
One second,
It is
exactly.
corruption.
That's what I'm saying. I discussed it at that time, and the Congress insisted we are not talking about the government making money. We are just talking about impropriety as far as contracts are concerned. That's a separate issue, but I'm not really discussing that.
No,
But Shazia, very quickly, I have to discuss UCC very quickly. 30 seconds, please. Shazia.
Yes, no, let me finish the point on. So we all know what charges Rahul Gandhi made against this government and particularly Prime Minister on the matter of Rafale and Chaukidar and what came out of it. They see the problem with these parties is they can't even imagine or fathom that there is a world beyond corruption, that governance is possible without corruption, that governments do come to power and can provide
ma'am, you are saying that Adani-
Indian
One by
public
one,
has
one by
felt that.
one.
Let me finish.
One by one. Nalapad, one by one. Please lower his volume. Yes, Shazia, finish, please.
So it's the first time in the last 9 years that people are experiencing a government at the center.
Okay, fair enough.
You see, Manmohan Singh's government was a Gangotri of scams, when Congress party, it's a scam party. That's all they're known for. They're the synonym for scams.
Okay, fair enough.
And TMC, Abhay Tossi was very upset now because Abhishek Banerjee is being quizzed now for teacher scam. Imagine recruitment of primary school teachers. There you taking money. Imagine the injustice you're doing to people, to students, to the future of Bengal. Look at the deep level of corruption. I mean, it's sad.
Okay.
It's nauseating.
Shazia.
But coming to UCC, UCC is enshrined as a directive principle in our constitution. I feel it's a tad too late. It should have happened earlier. And if you see and read the Constituent Assembly debates, you will realize that whether it was Ambedkar ji or it was Rajendra Prasad, they differed with Nehru ji on this issue.
But can
While
I
Hindu
can I
Code
ask you
Bill
a
came
question
in,
on
it was
that?
left to the discretion of Article 24 and directive principles. I think it's time and this has been BJP's stand for the longest period.
I get
So,
that, but the question that is coming in, one second,
But-
Shazia ji, please take a question. The question that is coming in from the opposition today is that why are you remembering UCC now? 9 years into your government, barely 12 months ahead of the next elections. One time the law ministry says there is no need for it, it's not the right time, and then suddenly few months later it changes its stance.
Because that is what because this has come back because of the law commission, and BJP manifesto has stated this. This has been an integral part of what BJP. Some of us are attracted to BJP because of this. This has been the stand of BJP as opposed to every party. If following the constitution and its directive principles is a part of the party.
I get that this has been one of your three big promises.
Should be with it.
No, I get that this has been one of your three big promises, along with abrogation of Article 370 and the construction of the Ram Temple. But why is it happening after 9 years of Prime Minister Modi in power? But let me go across. Yes?
I'm answering, Shivani.
Yeah.
If you just let me finish it. I was answering that actually. We waste so much time going back and forth. So the Law Commission has actually said that the opinions must be sought. It was done even earlier.
Yes.
And then it was felt that it was not needed. So it has come actually from the courts and now the Law Commission of India. And BJP has given its age-old, its declared principle on UCC, on which some of us firmly stand, and I feel there should be no gender discrimination.
Okay, but in 2016, what you're talking about,
of this country.
One second, the Law Commission at that time said that there is no need for UCC right now. It's neither necessary nor desirable at this stage. I'm just wondering, will the government explain what has changed? But anyways, I leave that aside. Yes, let me go across to...
the Law Commission has just asked for... The Law Commission has just asked for opinions.
Yeah, that generally means you are going to move in the direction... No, it generally means you're going to move in the direction of tabling a bill.
And you see...
Okay, fair enough. Shazia ji, I have limited time, so let me just go across to our other panelists as well. Let me go across to Mohammad Tausif as well. Mohammad Tausif, the Prime Minister is categorical in putting his weight behind UCC. What is the issue with the UCC? Why not back it? It's going to be for everybody, all Indians.
Ma'am, this is what I'm telling every day and continuously I'm speaking. Like, they started with Babri Masjid, Ram Mandir, then they were playing with Pulwama attack. Now they have UCC. This is the reason why BJP is slowly and gradually losing all these states. Now, what is the problem? If BJP is so famous and Narendra Modi has done so much work, why are they losing all these states? Now, the only thing is that BJP should show their work chart. I'm talking in a lame language for the people of India. BJP should come forward and show what they have done in 9 years, beside with opening ceremonies, ribbon cutting and fake promises. Aapne kiya kya in 10 saalon mein? Just come forward and show it to us and let all the opposition parties bring their work chart and let's decide and let's vote. Because I'm telling you, every time, 2024 will not be the election same as 2019. It will be a very different election.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question.
People have started thinking about
what
it.
Is the issue with the UCC?
They have opened their eyes. They will ask what you have done for us. Beside all this massacre, communal violence, demonetization, rupee versus dollar, everything is going down. We cannot eat food. The poor is becoming more poor. The rich is becoming richer.
Mohammed, you have to discuss the issue we are discussing. How are you going to do this otherwise? You have to discuss the issue we are discussing.
Will come forward.
No, but I asked you what is the issue with the UCC. Can you elucidate your party position?
No, UCC will come forward. But this is not the time for UCC. Is it very mandatory to work with UCC right now?
Then
any UCC in states? It is not mandatory at all. We have larger problems in state right now.
Okay.
So India is under a emergency situation, ma'am. Why don't you understand that?
Gender discrimination should be allowed to prevail.
People are not interested with UCC right now.
Mohammad Nalapad, please.
We need a stable economy. Right now, we need stable economy. We don't have that. Again, you're talking about Ram Mandir, Pulwama, UCC, Hindu, Muslim. Again, these all petty things will start. You want votes according to these things. These are your issues.
Okay.
Because TMC believes in the vote bank politics.
Okay, that's exactly what the Prime Minister said. Okay, both of you have to pull out, please. Let me go across to Mohammad Nalapad. He's waiting patiently. The Prime Minister has been categorical, Mohammad, that the reason why triple talaq was opposed or abolishing of triple talaq was opposed, or the reason why UCC is opposed, is because Muslims are being seen as a vote bank. And you're catering to a particular section of the Muslims, which are the hardline, particularly male clergy. You're not looking at the women who may want UCC because it gives them greater parity. And he talked about how triple talaq or UCC doesn't affect women alone, Muslim women alone. It will affect all families.
Ma'am, I disagree with the Prime Minister at only one point. What he says, let him agree, whatever his argument we accept. But for the last 9 years, where was he? For the 9 years when he is in power, when he has the absolute majority to pass whatever he wanted, why didn't he take up UCC?
So why do
is he
you
bringing
think?
it in the last moment, just before election? Why is he trying to polarize things? So who is using Muslims as a vote bank? Is it the BJP or the Congress? The BJP does this at every election juncture. When it comes to election, it brings up a Hindu-Muslim issue.
This is not a Hindu-Muslim issue. That's precisely what I'm saying. We need to get out of this narrative that UCC is a Hindu versus Muslim issue. This is an issue for everybody.
That is what the Prime Minister is trying to do. What was he doing in the last 9 years?
Okay, fair enough.
He had the absolute majority.
But he still has that. He still has about 8-9 months of his government left. It's not going to not do anything. But can I just add, there's an election every year in India. Every 6 months there are state elections. So anytime something, once again, anytime something happens, the pat reply cannot be that this election is coming or that election is coming. We cannot be held hostage to elections.
Very simple. The last 9 years, why didn't the Prime Minister bring up UCC?
I asked Shazia that question.
Just before the 2024 election?
Okay. I want to give Sanjay Kumar a final word on the issue of UCC itself. The Prime Minister and the BJP believes that reforms help them come closer to the Muslim community. They often talk about how Muslim women are supporting them in past elections. Can you just give me just a broad perspective of how Muslim women are looking at the BJP?
Shivani, I don't get any evidence of Muslim voters shifting in favor of BJP, whether it is Muslim men or Muslim women. It is true that in some states or in some constituencies where there are sizable number of Muslim voters, BJP has managed to win those elections, whether in a state assembly or Lok Sabha election. But that doesn't mean, that's not an evidence to suggest BJP managed to win those constituencies because Muslim women have voted in their favor. At least from our studies, we don't get any evidence that there is any shift of Muslim women support in favor of BJP.
I'll leave it at that. I'm running out of time. We will, of course, discuss UCC in detail as we go on. I do thank our guests for joining us. Moving on, as India's record on minority rights becomes the talk of the world, especially post former US President Barack Obama's comments, I spoke to a former commissioner of the USC IRF, Johnny Moore, who disagreed vehemently with the assessment on India and the timing of the comment.
I was particularly intrigued by your comment where you disagreed with President Obama's statements on minority rights in India. Now, you've headed a body, you've been a commissioner of a body that routinely rates India very poorly and marks India as a country of particular concern, particularly on this issue of minority rights and freedoms. So could you begin by explaining to me how someone like you, who's been part of this body and has produced those reports, disagrees with President Obama's comments made on Prime Minister Modi and India?
Well, like lots of people in a democracy, I don't choose to believe what I believe based upon what leaders, present or former, say. And I just thought that the former president, who is one of the smartest and most sophisticated leaders in American history, was remarkably unwise to make that comment. In fact, it's suspiciously unwise. I mean, he's not the type of leader that would just say something without really considering it. And so I thought that aside from the substance of his point of view, I thought the timing was just entirely inappropriate. And to say that India would pull apart, I mean, it's like one thing I know about India, and you ask why I have a slightly different point of view. It's because I've spent some time in India. I've been to India more than 20 times, mainly when I was younger, but through the years, And what I find is that India actually, the DNA of India actually pulls together. It doesn't pull apart. It's the more vibrant the debate in the democracy, the more passionate the disagreement when it comes to the religious diversity and 2,000 different languages and 2,000 different political parties, maybe 5,000 languages. Actually, that's the secret of India. The country pulls together. It doesn't pull apart. It's like metal. When you put fire on it, it gets stronger. And so I was just really surprised by the timing, the appropriateness, and the substance of the former president's comments.
What do you mean by the timing of the comments?
Well, I mean, to make those remarks on the eve or during the visit of the prime minister, I mean, that is either intentional or it's a political mistake that should be well beyond a leader with his experience. I mean, there's only one message that is coming from this visit in the United States, and only one message that I think should be resonating with India, and that is that we're entering a new moment between Indian and American relations. The relations have always been good. We're the oldest democracy in the world, the largest democracy in the world. We're partners in all kinds of things. And in fact, in my point of view, whether Prime Minister Modi was your preferred prime minister in India, or whether President Biden was your preferred president in the United States, every single Indian and every single American, whatever their political persuasions, should be standing and applauding this historic moment between these two great democracies.
So I'm just trying to understand, as somebody who was part of this body, why don't you seem to agree with what the body's reports say?
Well, first of all, in the commission, there are 9 commissioners, so it's a group of commissioners, and one of the benefits of being on the commission is the legislation that created the commission allows individual commissioners to express their alternative points of view. And I expressed my alternative point of view because, as I said to plenty of people over the last few days, the United States is not a perfect country. India is not a perfect country. There are always things to criticize. There are always ways to improve, particularly in democracies, because we are so diverse and we celebrate the competition of ideas and different points of view. And every election is an election that's more important than any other. But I thought it was absolutely just an incredible flaw of the system, if not absurd, to say India can be compared in any way whatsoever to the most egregious violators of religious freedom and human rights around the world. We all know what those countries are. We all know what those countries do. We all know what the policies of those countries are. And I just thought it was inappropriate, and I said so at the time. I say so again. And by the way, what also shocked me about the former president's comments, the former president was the president of the United States for 2 terms. He can pick up the phone and call anybody in the world he wants to call, and they'll answer his call. And that's the appropriate way of, even if that is his point of view, a point of view which I think is absurd, to comprehend the disillusion of India. And I think that the former president, if he's got a criticism, you should.
The question is, if evidence exists that India's record on minorities is not as bad as it is made out to be, then why does the West keep slamming India? I posed this question to Professor Salvatore Babones, who insists that India is rated poorly on these issues against evidence.
Salvatore, thanks a lot for speaking to CNN News 18 one more time. And I want to begin by asking you particularly about former President Barack Obama's comments, because they've made a lot of headlines in India, coming as they were, even as the Prime Minister was about to, speak in the White House after his bilateral with current President Joe Biden and getting into that press conference. I want to understand from you, was Barack Obama elucidating his personal view, a view of the Democrats, or a view of the American establishment?
This would have been very much a personal view. And I have to remind people that Barack Obama and Joe Biden are not great friends. It was well known that Barack Obama resented having Joe Biden inserted as his vice president, thought that Joe Biden had been sent to babysit him in some sense, and yet he felt exactly the opposite, that he was always babysitting Joe Biden. So this certainly wouldn't have been done in consultation with Joe Biden. That said, Barack Obama's views, I think, simply reflect the establishment view in the United States. If you listen carefully to what Jake Sullivan, the U.S. National Security Advisor, said, if you look carefully even at what the president said, neither of them, or for that matter, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Representative McCarthy, none of them stood up and said, we're very proud to be working with India because of its excellent human rights record. Instead, all of them towed the line that, well, India's human rights problems should be solved internally within India. They should be addressed through quiet diplomacy, not through overt name-calling. But they never actually defended India. And I think that's something that may have been missed by a lot of Indians watching all the wonderful compliments India was paid last week. I think they may have missed that those compliments were very generic, and there was a real unwillingness among American leaders to stand up for India.
Interesting you say that, because there was a difference in the tone and tenor and the thrust of the current president's comments when he was asked the same question and the former president. The former president clubbed India and China, while the current president said that India and US share the same DNA and the same values, and neither is perfect. So he clubbed India and US and not India and China. Do you see that as a dissonance between these two leaders in America, or is there a dissonance that goes deeper?
Look, the difference isn't in what the leaders think. The difference is in who's in office and who's out of office, and thus who has to speak diplomatically and who can speak freely. Now, that lumping of India and China in the same category, that's not coming from Barack Obama's deep knowledge of India. That's coming directly from the Rise of Democracy Institute's latest report. Now, VDEM is highly respected, the Rise of Democracy Institute based in Gothenburg, Sweden, at the University of Gothenburg. They, in their latest report, highlighted the equivalence between India having what they called an electoral autocracy and China having a closed autocracy. But they actually wrote the entire report around the structure of the equivalence of India and China, one having elections, one not having elections, but both being autocracies. Now, that narrative is ridiculous to anyone who's very familiar with India. But that narrative goes deep in the broad Western consciousness of what India is like today. Barack Obama wasn't doing his own research on it. He didn't give me a call and say, Professor Barbonis, what does your latest work say on India? He was simply repeating back what was in his intelligence briefings. Remember, he's still getting intelligence briefings, and his intelligence briefing could have told him, this is what VDEM says. This is what Reporters Sans Frontières says. This is what Human Rights Watch says. This is what the United States Holocaust Museum says, which is the most respected institution in the United States on human rights. Well, they're the ones saying that India faces a potential Muslim genocide in the 2020s. Now, those views are wildly off base. They're wildly out of step with the reality of India. But nonetheless, those views are the bedrock views of the American establishment today. They're taken for granted in the American establishment today. The question isn't, should we or should we not admire India's human rights record? The question is, should we or should we not condemn India's human rights record? And I'm sorry to go on at length, but the one op-ed I was able to place about this in the U.S. press during Mr. Modi's visit was titled by the newspaper that published it, "Should We Condemn Modi's India?" Now, I didn't submit it under that title. That was how they saw it. The question for them was, should we or should we not be publicly condemning India? The question was not, does India have a problem? They took it for granted that India had a problem.
So as you very rightly outlined, that India has a problem, at least in terms of perception in the American establishment and all the rankings. So my next question to you is, since you believe that actually these rankings are false or they are hyperbole about the situation in India, certainly it's nobody's contention that India is perfect. And that was repeated ad nauseum during the Prime Minister's visit to the US as well. What does India need to do to be seen differently or honestly by these rankings?
We need more and better information about India to get out into the public sphere. Now, look, I'm doing my bit. Everyone knows I've started a think tank called the Indian Century Roundtable. We're trying to get it funded to try to present a view of India in the West, an accurate view of India in the West. But the real problem is a lack of information. For example, if I were to say that more Muslims have been killed in mass attacks in New Zealand in the last 5 years than in India, people would think I'm crazy. They would say, no, we know New Zealand. It's a wonderful place. But in fact, more Muslims have been killed in mass attacks in New Zealand. The 2019 terrorist attack in Christchurch killed more Muslims than have been killed in any large-scale violence in India over the last 5 years. Now, we don't condemn New Zealand because everybody already knows a lot about New Zealand, already has a very positive perception of New Zealand. And so when that happens in New Zealand, it's perceived as some kind of bizarre exception. Now, I guarantee you that were 200 Muslims killed in a terrorist attack in India this year, that would color perceptions of India for the rest of the decade, because people don't have an alternative source of knowledge about India. They don't already have a well-developed sense that India is a liberal democracy that stands for human rights for its own citizens as well as in the rest of the world. Now, I have to say, India does not work very hard to get out that message. India's own Ministry of External Affairs is very defensive about this. It says it's not for you to judge India, instead of saying, thank you for judging India, but your judgment is wrong. Here are the facts. And I think India really could start reversing this narrative simply by presenting facts instead of by presenting a defensive, none of your business.
Is this also a little bit of a first world bias towards a quote-unquote third world country like India?
It very much is, because there's an assumption that we know about the third world, and that's an unfortunate term, but it is an apt term. I mean, India is very much part of the third world in the sense that it did not join either the American or the Soviet bloc during the Cold War, and it was part of that third world. It was the leader of that third world. So India, of all countries, is a quote-unquote third world country, but we've come to associate third world with poverty and backwardness. Now, there's still a lot of poverty in India, and if people get upset when I say that India is a poor country, look, I'm sorry, it has a GDP per capita of $2,200, $2,300 a year. That's poor by global standards. But India, unlike virtually every other poor country, is a vibrant democracy that protects human rights, that has rule of law. It's very difficult to find a country with a GDP per capita under about $8,000 per capita that has anything resembling Western style of rule of law. Yet India's rule of law doesn't just resemble Western style of rule of law. It's very similar. I mean, it's almost exactly the same as Western style rule of law. So India is very much an exception. Now, when Americans just assume, and forgive me, I'm going to speak here in a way that I wouldn't speak, but how Americans speak as well. India and Pakistan, they're both always just fighting. None of them can see sense. That is, Americans don't want to take the time to think through what are the actual events that have occurred between these countries. Who has attacked whom? And what can India do if there is Pakistani terrorism infiltrating into Kashmir, into Jammu, even for that matter, into Punjab? Of course, India has to fight this kind of international terrorism. Yet in America, instead of seeing that as India is plagued by international terrorism, they see it as, India and Pakistan are always fighting. Why can't they get along? Now, how you get those facts out is a difficult question, but it has to start with the MEA. If India is not going to get those facts out, who else is going to?
Well, possibly that will change as, India earns a bigger global voice. My another question to you is, another contention is that this heightened scrutiny and criticism of India is also because who is the current Prime Minister? That since 2014, because Narendra Modi is seen as a, quote, Hindu nationalist leader, the attacks have sharpened against India. They were softer earlier. Would you say that that is correct? That the issue is very much who's the Prime Minister today?
That's certainly true to some extent, in that Mr. Modi fits the Western image, and I stress that, the Western image of a third world dictator. He mainly speaks in his national language, not in English. He has a beard. He's brown, dare I say it. For all of our talk of anti-racism in the United States, we remain a a racist country in our initial responses to things. He does not fit the bill. When Rahul Gandhi goes and speaks abroad, he seems very suave, very Western. He speaks English fluently. He's a much more sympathetic figure to Western audiences than is Mr. Modi. Now, that said, Mr. Modi convinced a lot of people with his speech at the Congress. This was televised in the United States, and my own relatives, some of them called me and said, wow, I was really impressed with what he said. So, it's not necessary. If Mr. Modi is put in front of people in the West, I think he can convince people. But the initial reaction is simply that, well, he doesn't speak English. He's openly Hindu. He doesn't wear a suit. Instead, he wears traditional Indian clothing. There must be something wrong with him. And I think we can see this in a concrete way. The United States Pew Research Center's International Religious Freedom Rankings has rated India in the bottom 5 countries in the world ever since 2008. But we never heard about it in 2008. We never heard about it until after 2014. And the reason we didn't hear about it until then is it wasn't being weaponized until then. Unfortunately, today it's being weaponized.
I actually didn't mean it so much about how Americans look at India or Indians. I meant that since Narendra Modi came to power, groups that are anti-BJP or anti-Narendra Modi, they've sharpened their attacks. And as you said, they're being heard more and the attacks have been weaponized, or these rankings have been weaponized against India, because a lot of people in India feel, and certainly Narendra Modi's party feels, that this is primarily the group of people opposed to them coming together and harping on India to ensure that he doesn't have legitimacy or does not come back to power.
Well, this comes back to my notorious statement that, quote unquote, India's intellectuals are anti-India. Now, I want to be clear. I don't in any way mean to imply that all Indian intellectuals are anti-India. The point of that was to say that our Western perceptions of India, the anti-India perceptions that we are getting primarily from India's own intellectual class. That is, people who are able to speak in the West. If you look at who's writing for the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times about India, almost all of the major columnists who are writing about India for those 3 pivotal newspapers are of Indian origin. And they're the ones who are telling us that India has these serious human rights problems. It is very much a narrative coming out of India. Now, we might have seen something similar when Congress was in power, except the BJP is not full of intellectuals who have strong Western connections. So when Congress is in power, there might be a lot of complaints about Congress in India, because anti-Congress intellectuals are ruthlessly attacking Congress. That's the nature of politics. The difference is that with the BJP in power, Congress-aligned intellectuals, communist intellectuals, are attacking India, not attacking the government, not only in the Indian press, but also in the Western press, because they have access to the Western press. So certainly a lot of this narrative originates in India, but I really want to stress it's up to the Indian government, and from a political party standpoint, it's up to the BJP to be presenting its narrative. And it has not been doing so effectively. The response of both the Indian government at an official level and the BJP at a party level has been to say, it's none of your business what we do in India, instead of saying, actually, our record is quite strong. Please come look at it.
All right, time for a very short break. But coming up on the other side, a good story that will warm your heart. A Swadesh moment in UP's Bulandshahr as a bulb glows at a 70-year-old woman's home. We'll get to that in just a bit.
Power. Last Diwali, Mayor Adams and I laid out our vision to make Diwali a school holiday through a city-state partnership. We said we would do it, and we did. I thank Mayor Adams for being the first and only mayor in the history of our city to elevate the Diwali school holiday cause and put the force of his administration behind it. Last Diwali, the mayor and I announced our city and state partnership to create this Diwali school holiday. And we saw it all the way through to victory today. Today, the mayor and I are proud to stand before the whole world and say that from now on and forever, Diwali will be a school holiday in New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, it is to be enshrined in law. Diwali at last will be a holiday in our great city. So today we say to over 600,000 Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, and Jain Americans across New York City, we see you. Today we say to families from India, Guyana, Trinidad, Nepal, and Bangladesh, we recognize you. Families just like mine. My family is like every South Asian family standing behind me today. My parents came to this country from India with just $300 and a suitcase. My mom was born in a mud hut. Today I stand before you as the first Indian American woman ever elected to a New York State office. And I am also the first Hindu American ever elected to a New York State office. But most of all, I am a proud New Yorker and a proud American. The great Shirley Chisholm was the first black woman to serve in the United States Congress, the first black woman to run for president. She once was a state assemblywoman also. And she said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Yes. As the first elected of our community, I picked up my folding chair and went to Albany to make a place for us at the table of power and to fight for our community to be seen. When I was in Albany,
Acha Bank.
Welcome back. A heartwarming story from Bulandshahr, where the UP police got electricity connection done for an aged woman who was living without power. The moment when Noor Jahan, auntie, finally got a bulb and fan powered in her house has now gone viral on Twitter. The woman lives alone and was not able to afford to get an electricity connection. IPS officer Anukriti Sharma, who was there as part of the UP police, said this was a real life Swades moment for her. The smile on Noor Jahan auntie's face was immensely satisfying. She thanked her SHO Jitendra and the entire team for support. An IPS officer of the UP cadre, Anukriti Sharma, is now joining us on this beautiful story. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your time. Can you begin by telling me कि आप ये नूरजहान आंटी से मिली कैसे और आपको कैसे पता चला कि उनकी क्या दिक्कत थी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कनेक्शन को लेके?
तो हम लोग लगातार ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो पुलिस का परसेप्शन है वो बदले। तो उसके लिए हम लोग बार-बार गांव में जाते हैं, गांव में ग्राम चौपाल लगाते हैं। ये मैं लगातार करती आई हूँ और जो मिशन शक्ति अभियान चल रहा है उसके अंतर्गत भी हमसे कहा जाता है कि हम गांव में जाके लोगों की प्रॉब्लम्स वहीं सुने। आप जानते हैं कि हमारे समाज के बहुत सारे ऐसे वर्ग हैं, जैसे महिलाएं हो गई, बच्चे हो गए, बूढ़े हो गए, ये लोग कभी भी अपनी बात कहने थाने तक नहीं आ पाते हैं। एक जेन्युइन आदमी को भी अपनी बात कहने में बहुत डर लगता है पुलिस से। तो ये ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। पुलिस उनकी सबसे अच्छी दोस्त होती है। तो बिना डर के कोई भी व्यक्ति थाने तक आ जाए या हम तक अपनी बात पहुंचाए, अल्टीमेटली हम उस गोल को अचीव करना चाहते हैं। तो वो अचानक नहीं होगा। तो धीरे धीरे उनका विश्वास जीतने के लिए हम गांव में जाते हैं और उनसे कहते हैं कि भाई आप कहते हो पुलिस आपकी सुनती नहीं है, आज हम बस आपकी सुनने आए हैं, बताइए आपको क्या परेशानी है। तो जब हम ये बात कहते हैं फिर वो अपनी दुनिया भर की प्रॉब्लम बताते हैं। लोगों को तो नहीं पता होता है कि इस डिपार्टमेंट का काम है कि इस डिपार्टमेंट का काम है। उनको लगता है एक सरकारी आदमी मेरे सामने बैठा है, वो मेरा कुछ भी काम करा सकता है। जी। और जो यूनिफॉर्म होती है वो स्टेट का सबसे विजिबल पार्ट होती है। तो नॉर्मल सिविल में होगा तो आदमी को नहीं पता चलेगा कि कौन से डिपार्टमेंट का आदमी है। हमें देख कर पता है कि ये तो पक्का प्रशासन का आदमी है। तो वो जब प्रॉब्लम बताते हैं तो वो जो प्रॉब्लम है वो बताते हैं। तो ऐसी एक ग्राम चौपाल में जब हम गए थे अगौता में, तो ये नूरजहां आंटी जो है उन्होंने आके कहा कि मेरे तो जीवन में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बस मेरे घर में बिजली नहीं है, तुम बिजली ला दो। तो हमने जब पता किया तो नूरजहां एक विधवा महिला है और इनकी 2 बच्चियां हैं, दोनों इस समय बाहर रह रही हैं शादी के बाद और ये पढ़ी लिखी भी नहीं है। तो जो पेपर वर्क रिक्वायर्ड होता है वो इनके लिए किसी ने किया नहीं। 1500 रुपए पहले कनेक्शन के लिए लगता है, वो इनके पास है नहीं। तो इन्होंने कभी आवेदन नहीं किया। तो हमने कहा हमारे लिए तो बहुत ही छोटा सा काम है। तो हम लोगों ने तुरंत जेई से बात किया, जो मेरे एसएचओ हैं जितेंद्र जी, मैंने उनको कहा कि इनका तो करवाना है आपको, ये फटाफट हो जाएगा। तो हमने फिर पंखा भी लिया, एक बल्ब भी लिया, बिजली का कनेक्शन फटाफट पेपर वर्क करा के 2 दिन के अंदर उनको हम लोगों ने कनेक्शन दिलवा दिया। तो ये एक पुलिस हमारी डोमेन का नहीं था, पर आप मेरे एक सीनियर ऑफिसर हैं, वो कहते हैं जैसे स्टील अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया लिमिटेड का होता है स्लोगन है कि देयर इज अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ स्टील इन एवरीथिंग, वैसे ही देयर इज अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ पुलिस इन एवरीथिंग। अब किसी का अंधकार में घर अगर है तो वैसे भी क्राइम को वल्नरेबल तो हो ही गया ना। तो हम जो भी काम करेंगे वो कहीं ना कहीं क्राइम से रिलेटेड होगा, लोगों की सेवा से रिलेटेड होगा। तो कोई बात नहीं, अगर किसी ने हमें हमें अपनी समस्या बताई है, विल गो आउट ऑफ द वे और हम तक आ गए, मतलब उनका काम हो जाएगा। तो ये प्रयास
बहुत अच्छी बात है। मैं अब आपसे ये पूछना चाह रही हूँ, और ये सवाल शायद लोगों ने आपसे किया होगा कि कनेक्शन तो आपने करा दिया, इनिशियल डिपॉजिट भी दे दिया, लेकिन अब वो अपना इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल कैसे भरेंगी?
तो उनका खर्चा ज्यादा नहीं है, एलईडी बल्ब है और पंखा है, ठीक है। तो ये तो प्रधान ने भी कहा है कि वो बहुत गरीब है तो उनका ज्यादा खर्चा नहीं आएगा, हम लोग मिलके इसको मंथली बेसिस पे करते रहेंगे। प्लस हमारे एसएचओ ने भी कहा है कि ये तो हम लोग भी सब शेयर कर लेंगे, मतलब वो बहुत ज्यादा नहीं आने वाला। उनके घर में ना एसी चल रहा है ना फ्रिज चल रहा है, इस तरह की कोई चीज नहीं है, एक छोटा सा पंखा और एक एलईडी बल्ब का खर्चा है, तो बिल ज्यादा नहीं आएगा। वी ऑल विल शेयर फॉर इट हर, और उनका कुछ है भी नहीं, और हम लोग वो विधवा पेंशन भी पा रहे हैं, पर तो हम लोग सब मिलके कर लेंगे, अब वो हमारी जिम्मेदारी है।
All right. Many thanks, Anukriti Sharma, for joining us, and many congratulations for doing this good work for those who absolutely need it. On that note, it's a wrap on Plain Speak. Anand Narasimhan is joining you with the right stand on the other side.
Indian communities, wherever they get a chance. So, in a way, the recognition of Indian community, the recognition of Indian diaspora in USA, that was long overdue, is now coming to the fore. We have seen how Prime Minister Modi was welcomed, and there was again a bipartisan support there in the Congress when Prime Minister Modi was addressing. So that tells that irrespective of the policy, which side of the politics in USA you are, there is an overall support for the Indian community and their presence, their contribution to society, and recognizing Diwali as public holiday is just another sign of that.
All right, Abhishek, please stay with us. Now we are showing you the visuals right after the announcement was made in New York City.
Diwali! 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 This is what victory looks like. This is what victory feels like. For over 2 decades, the South Asian and Indo-Caribbean community has fought for this moment. People said this day would never come, but today we stand victorious inside of City Hall. Our time has come, and we have arrived at the table of power. Last Diwali, Mayor Adams and I laid out our vision to make Diwali a school holiday through a city-state partnership. We said we would do it, and we did. I thank Mayor Adams for being the first and only mayor in the history of our city to elevate the Diwali school holiday cause and put the force of his administration behind it. Last Diwali, the mayor and